Hey y'all, here OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a closer look at something pretty cool. It's the XREAL Air 2 Pro AR glasses, along with their Beam Pro, which is a companion device that you can plug the glasses into. So taking a quick peek at some of the top-line specs, the Air 2 Pros continues on the popularity of the original Airs, which are designed very similarly to something like Ray-Ban sunglasses. So I personally find them to be a little bit more stylish and casual looking compared to other AR glasses from, say, Rocket or TCL, and it actually makes it more non-assuming as you're wearing it in public. Plus, the 2 Pros are actually quite lightweight at only 75 grams, so they don't actually feel too stressful as you're wearing it for a couple of hours of video consumption when on the go, and the screen size has also increased compared to the original Airs, which were already advertised as a quote-unquote IMAX experience in your pocket, but those first-generation glasses often came with roughly a 130-inch virtual screen simulated from a couple of feet away. However, this newer gen of glasses now doubles that to around 300 to 330 inches virtual screen size. And that is a noticeable difference. Other first-generation glasses I've tried typically feel like looking at a smaller screen that's floating in front of you, whereas this now almost fills it all the way to the edges of your vision. Any larger, and some of the corners and edges would become cut out. So I feel like this is kind of a sweet spot. And once you've tried some of these second-generation AR glasses, it is a bit tougher to go back to those original generation pairs. They are still using Micro-OLED screens, so very good in terms of contrast, just like OLED TVs or phones. Blacks are completely dark, and if you're looking at TV shows like Game of Thrones, the contrast really does pop. In fact, these screens are even brighter than before, and they still offer up to 120 Hz refresh rate, so if you are gaming or looking at fast action sequences, it feels quite fluid. Yet another unique function on the Air 2 Pros is the built-in electrochromatic dimmable lenses. So there's an extra layer in the glass that is similar to on airplane windows, where you can tap on it to control how bright or dim you want the surroundings to be. Something's transparent, so you can completely see your environment, or if you want to nearly close it off, making it more immersive when you're consuming content. It's something that is actually quite useful versus the aforementioned TCLs as well as Rockets that we've seen previously, where you had to physically attach a plastic piece over the lens and there's no variable adjustments in the brightness. Built-in stereo speakers, like other glasses, which are similar to bone conduction, they are resting right outside your ears, providing you with decent enough audio, although you are also aware of what's happening around you. And like other AR glasses, it's just using a standard USB Type-C cable, so you can plug it into a variety of devices, from compatible smartphones to their Beam series companion devices, which are optional, to laptops as well as gaming consoles, and it just works like a portable TV screen in your pocket. And one final design feature that is unique here compared to the Rockets or TCLs is the temple are technically adjustable, so you can snap it using your hands if you want to tilt the screen a little bit more upwards or downwards based on how you're wearing them. We can kind of tell that in this image where the hinge here is technically flexible, you can move it up or down. Here's also a peek into the Nebula UI experience. Using 3 degrees of freedom for position tracking allows you to either look at the screen in front of you and it will follow you as you're tilting your head, although the built-in accelerometers tries to mitigate some of the shakiness. It's kind of similar to on a smartphone camera gimbal by smoothing out some of the micro jitters and shakes. So if you're watching content in a car or on an airplane, it's not going to give you a headache, or you can have a body anchor mode that will always have the screen positioned on a wall, for example, and as you're tilting your head, the screen will still remain relatively fixed in that same spot. That being said, for even more accurate positional tracking, sometimes 6 degrees of freedom can be even more advantageous. And that is why XREAL also have available the Air 2 Ultras, which has just a few more kind of gyroscopes, accelerometers inside, and even cameras facing outwards that gives you more accurate positioning, rivaling that of things like the Apple Vision Pro, versus the 3 DOF on the Air 2 Pros are going to be a slight step down. So if you want the best in-class tracking capabilities, then the Ultra model might be worth considering. Now, I'll also point out that to achieve the really light form factor, just like the original XREAL Airs, these do require a prescription lens insert if you wear prescription glasses, and they've partnered with a couple of stores and brands where you can pick those up if you need them, because there are no built-in diopter adjustments on the Air 2 series. And again, these AR glasses, just like most VR glasses for that matter, really gives you the illusion that the screen that you're looking at is a couple of feet in front of you. So if you are nearsighted, just keep that in mind. It's to make the screens feel more realistic, like something in physical space without fatiguing or tiring out your eyes quite as much. Using the birdbath optics, it's quite clever there. So here's also a quick description in terms of the difference between 130 inches here versus 330 inches. So by increasing that diagonal, you do get a much larger surface area overall using those SONY Micro-OLEDs. Last but not least, here's a peek into the Beam Pro, again that companion device that is reminiscent of a smartphone, but as a dedicated unit, advantages here include you don't have to exhaust the battery in your phone when you are consuming AR and video content, and also there are some AR exclusive hardware features on this device. For instance, there are two USB Type-C ports at the bottom, one which can connect to your glasses, while the second port can be used for charging at the same time. And there's also a dedicated AR button on the side that can be remapped to other functions. Not to mention 3D stereoscopic cameras on the back of the unit here, which allows you to capture images with depth and then view it back on the glasses. So this Beam Pro companion device sells for $200. It's surprisingly quite affordable and comes with the Nebula software experience baked in by default and doesn't require you to set up anything, especially if you have an Android phone that doesn't really have USB Type-C output, then this is going to be a good idea because you don't have to upgrade your entire phone to experience some of those AR features, making it more of a plug-and-play experience out of the box. And previously, they did have a regular Beam, which was more like a remote control, kind of Android TV box in the palm of your hand with a battery, but this just has a screen now, enabling you to also use it when detached from the glasses, like a secondary music player or companion device. And in fact, they are, I believe, working on a cellular model. The base version doesn't come with a SIM slot, but there will be, I think, a more pro version that does have one that you can use to also make calls and connect to data. This one here, though, is Wi-Fi only for the base $200 model. I do like the minimalistic color scheme here of red and white, very clean and minimalistic. Some other features on the Beam Pro include a micro SD card slot that you can use to expand on the built-in memory. 128 gigabytes are in there by default, comes with 6 gigs of RAM, and they're using a quote-unquote spatial companion processor from Qualcomm Snapdragon. It is a 4nm chip, which is pretty energy efficient and relatively in line to something like a Snapdragon 7 Gen series processor, but good enough to get by with, again, using it with the glasses. 6.5-inch IPS LCD screen, 1080p res when you're looking at just the device itself, and of course comes with both Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, with support for fast charging up to 27 watts, topping up the 4,300 milliamp hour capacity battery in just a little over an hour. So here's a closer look at the packaging, also presented in quite a colorful way, certified to be color accurate, as well as low blue light for making it comfortable on your eyes as you're consuming media and content. The holographic presentation continues as you open the box. We have below here a sample kind of lens cutout. If you do wear prescription glasses, you can then snap these onto the AR glasses themselves and get those adjusted. And you also get a couple of nose pieces if you want a more snug fit. By default, the medium size is pre-attached, but there's also a small as well as a large version. And further down below here, we have just a microfiber cleaning cloth as well as a quick user guide. And the pill-sized box itself is slightly soft. On the inside here, we have just the glasses on top. We have some microfiber padding the inside to prevent any scratching or damage during transit. And otherwise, we also get a standard USB Type-C cable. And by default, you notice that there is a hard kind of plastic piece snapped onto the glasses, protecting it. This is also the blackout shade if you want total immersion. Of course, there will still be a little bit of light that can pass through from some of the edges and sides compared to a true pair of VR glasses, but ultimately these are a lot more compact and thin. So this can be popped off if you want to use them in the more transparent view, or with the electrochromatic glass that we'll see in a moment, darken it or brighten it using the 3 levels. But this will just get even darker. That we can also remove, and it just echoes the design of the glasses underneath. However, this is still just a piece of plastic that's completely dark, but just having a bit of a glossy texture there on the front to mirror the design of what's on the inside. We'll take a closer look at the hardware and discuss the ergonomics of the glasses themselves in a moment, but first let's also unbox the Beam Pro companion device. It slides out here using an easy pull tab, and aside from the device itself, underneath we also get just a quick user guide as well as a pin here for removing the micro SD slot, the various anchor versus smooth follow modes, which can be adjusted back and forth using the aforementioned red remappable key there on the side when the glasses are connected. You can note, however, that a Type-C charging cable or wall adapter are not included in the box, kind of taking a note from Apple in that regard. Now taking a closer look at the design as well as ergonomics of the glasses here first. Although very light, they are actually pretty solid feeling in terms of the density. It doesn't feel loose or hollow at all. Temples and also the moving parts are constructed out of a chrome-like metal, making the moving pieces a little bit more sturdy and just adding a bit more of an interesting design touch. And as aforementioned, the temples here are adjustable, so you just have to pry on it with a little bit of force if you want to tilt it further upwards or downwards. There's 3 different adjustments. Again, this is a feature, again, tilting the screen higher or lower as you're wearing them, that's missing on most of the other competitors that we've seen in the past. So good ergonomics here. And the right temple also houses a few other controls, which will adjust the brightness of the OLED screens, and also this one here is for dimming or brightening the electrochromatic glass. Again, the nose piece here is technically also a little flexible using the memory wire, so it does feel quite soft. And down below here is basically a micro-OLED screen that using the prism design kind of reflects it, and when you're wearing it, creates the illusion of a much larger display. So there's technically a, again, second layer of glass on top, which is kind of the electrochromatic piece, and then the actual screen is kind of sitting there up front. You also have a proximity light sensor that can detect if you're wearing the glasses or not, so it can automatically turn off the screen to consume less power when you're removing them. So I do think XREAL has a slight advantage versus its competitors when it comes to the design, just being the most casual, something you can wear more comfortably in public without people really noticing or staring. Moving into the Beam Pro companion device, I gotta admit that white-colored mobile products definitely have a special place in my heart, whether it's from Sony, Meizu, or even classic Nokia from back in the day. It's just so clean and understated, especially with some of the red accents that also run across the specialty control buttons that we talked about earlier. I think do make it look quite memorable. So the back here houses the, again, 3D cameras. You can also use it as just a single camera if you want to take regular photos. There is a LED flash, and they are 50 megapixel sensors. We have a regular volume control here, as well as a power key, as well as the 2 Type-C ports, one for connecting to the glasses, one for charging, and also status LED lights, plus the micro SD card slot. And last but not least, there is the loudspeaker located interestingly at the very top, because the bottom section are occupied by the Type-C ports. One thing I would like to see added though, maybe in a more upgraded model in the future, would be some type of biometric fingerprint scanner that is missing at the moment. The screen here up front is also decent. The bezel at the very bottom may be just a hair larger than the very top, but still looks quite clean, along with a hole punch cutout for the front-facing selfie camera if you choose to use it. And otherwise, we do have a pretty interesting launcher on top of Android. It is relatively stock, however, some of the widgets are also giving me some Nothing Phone or CMF vibes. Not in a bad way though, it definitely provides a bit more character, such as the dual camera lenses if you want to jump into the camera UI, and also a widget here that tells you how much storage space you're using on the device. All look quite distinctive. And connecting the glasses is relatively easy, plug and play. You'll get a pop-up notification after a moment that says the glasses are initializing before going into the Nebula UI, which is reminiscent of something like Samsung DeX, in that the phone becomes a touchpad as you're navigating around. We'll be taking a closer look at the Nebula UI using the screen recordings in a moment, but just to illustrate what the experience kind of feels like as you're wearing them, I'm going to cover up the proximity light sensor for demonstration, and here's also the electrochromatic glass in action, so you can tell like just getting a little bit dimmer there versus being completely transparent. So it is surprisingly quite effective, and again, similar to on airplane windows, you get a nearly blackout experience just at a click of a button. Is controlled using this liquid crystal section that when applied a current, you can tell how the particles inside can move. It almost reminds me a little bit of ink in that way, but when they are kind of in this particular horizontal orientation, light can completely pass through. But when you pop them into the 90-degree angle, it's going to be blocking all the light. Alright, so returning to the glasses here, as you can tell, in this particular fixed position mode, as I'm moving it, the icons are staying relatively still in that one position. You can realign where you want this view to be just by tapping on the home key on the Beam Pro, versus in the smooth follow mode, where as you can tell, as I'm kind of tilting it around, the screen is going to be moving a little bit more. And now a quick walkthrough into the Nebula UI. Again, the applications are displayed as these bubbles, a little reminiscent of Apple Vision Pro, but pretty intuitive. The device then acts as your virtual cursor point. We can also swipe up on the D-pad to access some of our recently opened applications, and also multitask between some of the open programs in the background or close them up. We can also swipe down to trigger the shortcuts in terms of battery percentage, turning on and off wireless options, as well as screen recording. So here I've opened the Google Photos application. We can scroll up and down through lists or websites, by the way, by using 2 fingers, similar to on a computer trackpad. Now on the very top here, you can also pull up the ability to resize the window. As you can tell, they're making it larger versus smaller. That will fill up the entire vision compared to just a smaller section. Now we can also tap on View Broad Beta. This will kind of put the application into a horizontal orientation instead. And you can, again, make this larger versus smaller. We can go ahead and tap on Chrome. And now we have both Chrome as well as the Photos app here open at the same time. Similarly, you can be watching a video while you're working on something like a Google document for research purposes. You get those two floating windows for better multitasking. Now on the mobile version of Nebula, you are able to open up 2 windows or applications at the most, compared to on, let's say, a PC where you may have more RAM as well as faster CPU, you can open up even more. But overall, still working quite nicely on just a, again, mobile device. And again, the display itself offers a pretty good experience when it comes to sharpness. Overall, everything looks quite legible and clear. And the slightly faster refresh rate also means as I am navigating around the UI and kind of moving side by side, I'm not noticing too much jitteriness either. Yes, it may not be quite as expansive as on true closed off VR, but again, considering the super lightweight form, I think that this really second generation type of AR screens have definitely improved versus Gen 1 when it comes to that virtual screen size, and the experience just is a little bit more immersive overall. A couple of other footnotes: when you're trying to type something in, you can use either voice input via the microphone of the Beam Pro, or if you tap on a text box, it will pull up the QWERTY keyboard on the device, this display. So because it is semi-transparent, you can hold the phone in front of you and still make it out, or kind of peek just a little bit below kind of your nose and still type in using the keyboard, and it works decently. Alternatively, if you're using Nebula with macOS, obviously you can type in using your computer's keyboard or connect to Bluetooth accessories like a wireless keyboard and mouse if you really wanted to. And because it is a very private display, if you're doing work at a cafe or on a flight, for example, others around you won't be able to see your screen, and you get a little bit more peace of mind. In addition to the screen itself definitely being larger, more comfortable as you're getting work done. You can even lie down in bed instead of having to be hunched over your computer. So your posture can be a little bit more free as well. One thing I will say is that the screen recording function here doesn't seem to allow me to record when I'm in applications like games, as well as when I'm streaming back videos, obviously on Netflix or YouTube. So that just becomes a black screen. So for copyright reasons, it seems like not able to demo that, unfortunately, here. But again, similar to what we saw there for web browsing and on documents, the visuals themselves are quite impressive, pretty cinematic, in fact, as you're consuming videos. But obviously, there's nothing stopping you from streaming back games, either mobile titles on your device or using something like connecting it to a portable console, such as a Steam Deck, or even using Moonlight to remote play into other PC games using Xbox's xCloud service. Also thanks to the glasses themselves having a slightly bendable end piece, as you can tell there. So this tip is coated in a soft touch rubber, making it, again, quite comfortable. A couple of other footnotes here would be that the sound quality I do feel is a slight improvement versus some of the Gen 1 glasses as well, just getting a little bit more loud and full sounding. Obviously, they're not going to be quite as immersive as completely closed off headphones, but there's nothing stopping you from pairing to wireless TWS buds if you wanted to for more noise cancellation, since again your ears aren't fully covered up, so that's just up to personal choice. And also the heat situation I think is handled pretty well. I actually didn't feel like the micro-OLEDs here that are being projected are getting too warm or hot even after longer than an hour or two of usage. Rather, interestingly, it looks like the left-hand arm, this particular temple section does get a little bit warmer at times, but overall it's not uncomfortable. Again, the glasses themselves don't have any batteries of their own, so it's just draining it from your companion device, such as the Beam Pro here, which is why, again, I think it is a nice idea because this is compact enough, it just slides into your pocket instead of using up even more battery on your phone. And now let's talk a little bit more about the Beam Pro user experience. Now, when you are plugged into the glasses, because it is draining power a little bit more quickly because the device is technically still on. The screen here is used as your trackpad, plus it's powering those micro-OLEDs. So it will get a little bit more warm as you're pressing it harder for, say, an hour or so. By the way, when you are driving the glasses, the battery here is around 4 hours of continuous usage for things like media consumption or light gaming, but it can be topped up or used while charging again at the same time. And then obviously when you're using it as a dedicated smartphone-like device, it becomes a lot cooler in operation, since the normal Android UI is even lighter for the CPU and GPU to handle. And yes, all of the standard Google applications are built in here as well, including the full Play Store, in addition to the Nebula App Store. We can see that it is currently running on Android 14 at the moment, although software updates, especially for Nebula OS, are available frequently over the air. Now, if we tap on gestures, this is where you can also tap on the mode key, which is that red button. So when no glasses are connected, you can remap it to any function that you'd like. For instance, right now we have it to open up the alarm clock. So it is actually quite thoughtful and a unique hardware touch that I do appreciate. Now, by the way, this device can also be used, the Beam Pro, with other AR glasses if you have those already. However, you won't be able to leverage the Nebula UI experience. What we saw there before with the floating bubbles and the positional tracking capabilities are going to be unique to the actual XREALs. It will be recognized when you plug them in. However, the device here does have video display output. So if I connect these to raw kids or TCL glasses, it will be just mirroring the phone's display onto the glasses. Some extra settings here in the Beam Pro include colors. You're able to adjust between vivid and standard. The screen, again, is actually pretty decent looking for what it is as a relatively affordable mobile companion device. There's also double tap to wake when the screen is turned off. And there are a handful of other wallpapers that you can choose between as well that all shows off the vibrancy of this panel. Moving into some AR-exclusive apps, including the XREAL Store. So this is a curated list of certain applications which are designed to run really well with the glasses. The list isn't, again, the biggest in the world, especially when it comes to games. Right now, the official ones recommended are just Pup Pup as well as Maze. So hopefully this list will continue to grow. You can technically go into the development section on their website and find a couple more titles. However, if you are trying to do more serious gaming, you can again leverage PC streaming or just play back mobile titles on a larger screen. Although it won't necessarily be AR games, at least you can use it on a more impressive display as you're wearing the glasses. These are just going to take advantage of the motion tracking. And you can also find, again, remote desktop tools that they recommend as well, in addition to some of the aforementioned video streaming tools. But overall, the AR-specific applications, although, again, not the most exhaustive, are still quite fun to play with. Kind of sharing a snippet of that interactivity. Technically, when you disconnect the glasses, some of the applications are still going to be in the background on your Beam Pro, as you can tell there. So you can still jump back into where you left off, and after a split second, it just re-renders the page to fit onto the mobile screen instead. So from a processing perspective, when it comes to web browsing, as you can tell here, it still is a pretty fluid experience, all things considered. Reception quality has also been pretty strong with dual-band Wi-Fi 5 support. And similarly, it's enough compute power to run back some mobile games. Even slightly heavier ones like Sky here or PUBG, Minecraft will still load. So it's not bad for handling the basics, as you can tell here, as just kind of a quick demo. Reading back some ebooks, documents, things like that really won't pose an issue. Social media tools as well for this energy-efficient Qualcomm Snapdragon chip. And also jumping into the camera app here quickly, the UI is pretty simple to use. By default, it will start off in the regular photo app using just one of those 50 megapixel sensors. However, you are able to also slightly crop out into 0.5 times, a little bit more ultra wide angle versus the 1 times, because both of the cameras there are the same to get the stereoscopic 3D effect, but you just have some software features there. You can also tap to record video, and the resolution can be toggled all the way up here to 4K. Final 2 taps here pulls into spatial video and also spatial photo. And this will capture the stereoscopic 3D image. It actually stores information pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long to process. So it's similar, in fact, to what we had on things like Google Cardboard back in the day. If you guys remember, it just placed those two images left and right. And when you are connected again to the glasses, you get that sense of depth because it is simulating your eyes and seeing the left and also the right side. And overall, the quality of images are decent. Again, 50 megapixel Sony sensors, although it doesn't give you too much manual control adjustments for things like ISO, white balance, or HDR, but as a whole, it doesn't do too shabby, especially when it comes to outdoor landscape shots. Colors are still relatively vibrant looking. A few caveats just to keep in mind though is when you are capturing in spatial mode, it seems like the minimum focusing distance is at least a feet or so away for my personal testing, compared to in the single lens mode, you can actually capture more macro shots up close. So just keep that in mind. You have to stand a little bit further back, and ideally, when you're composing your shots, you would want it to have several different objects at different distances. That will give you the most significant 3D effect when you're viewing back your results. Maybe the only slight con of, again, having a design like this though is the camera lenses do protrude a little bit more from the back of the unit, so when you're setting it down onto a table it might wobble a little bit. Thankfully though, the rings are protected by a layer of aluminum alloy, making it a little bit more wear resistant. Also moving into a quick demo of what the built-in speakers sound like. So overall, at least it gets decently loud. If you're just using it casually for watching back some YouTube clips, it should be more than sufficient. And it doesn't get covered up too easily either, mostly because there is a slight cutout here for the earpiece, and as a result, the sound also comes out from here if you are blocking the grills here on the top. The price being sub $200 is competitive enough that if you just want it to be kind of a secondary camera for capturing content, even for viewing back with other VR glasses, that it might be worth considering. If you want to leverage more of the AR experience, then you would want to download, again, their Nebula companion software, which is available for macOS. I think the Windows version is still under development at this point in time, and a mobile version of Nebula is also available for Android if your device has video output support using Type-C. And when you plug the glasses onto your laptop, you have essentially a virtual screen that is visible only to you floating onto the side of your physical display, making it a pretty interesting alternative to something like a portable external display, but giving you more privacy and better for multitasking when you're working when on the go. So you're able to control the brightness of the screen on your computer. You can turn it completely off, only have the virtual screens on in the glasses, as well as control the brightness of the glasses from here. And you can also adjust up to 3 virtual screens versus 2 screens versus 1 screen on the glasses. One setting that isn't available though on the mobile application is interestingly changing the IDP, aka the interpupillary distance, or the distance between your pupils. So depending on how far apart your eyes are, which is maybe slightly different from person to person, how we focus on images might be a little different as well. So that's a software setting that hopefully they bring over in future updates that would make it even more customizable. Anyways, it works quite well. Simply plug and play, launch into the Nebula app, and it will start up, working with both Intel as well as Apple Silicon M1, M2, M3 Max. Alright, so that is more or less it as far as a closer look at the XREAL Beam Pro plus the XREAL Air 2 Pro AR glasses. And although in the past I've mentioned that the whole AR categorization of some of these types of wearables from brands like Rocket as well as Rayneo from TCL might be a little bit misleading because the software support isn't quite as exhaustive. It's really just like a pair of portable displays that you can wear over your face, and the actual display quality again is quite impressive with those Micro-OLED screens. But I think XREAL gets the closest to the augmented reality definition because they are actually taking advantage of the position tracking using the Nebula software compatible either from the, again, Beam Pro or on other Android smartphones, as well as even on computers. Not to mention that they have a SDK available for developers, and they have this under their AR lab section, which means other users are able to create games as well as applications. So again, that level of detail and that kind of UI experience makes them more than just only a display at the very least. The hardware ergonomics of XREAL, I think, are also leading in this space, where the comfort is super light, the electrochromatic dimmable lenses are really cool. The aesthetic being quite similar to just regular sunglasses. So after trying these out, I can definitely understand where the hype for XREAL are coming from compared to, again, some of their competitors. The ecosystem for sure is the most polished out of the ones that we've seen. Not bad as a mobile travel companion to kick back and relax when you're watching movies, in addition to maybe doing some gaming as well as some productivity work. So something like this can be a great option for road warriors, in addition to maybe even students. If you're tight on actual desk space, having these virtual screens kind of replace a physical monitor or projector. That said, as far as potential cons are concerned, in order to achieve a really lightweight fit, again, they don't have built-in diopters, so you still have to get your own prescription lens inserts if you are someone that wears glasses. But really, aside from that, I think that these are an excellent pair of AR glasses to consider, and again, they're just so much more compact compared to kind of the VR goggles of yesteryear. Of course, VR is going to be even more closed off. You get an even wider field of view. However, again, you have to be carrying something much larger that will be strapped on your face that can't really be used in public, whereas these have much more mainstream appeal, I would argue, especially when you're connecting it just using a standard Type-C port onto a mobile device. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been a closer look at the pretty neat XREAL Beam Pro as well as the Air 2 Pro.